Ultimate Custom Night is by far the most mechanically complex game in the original Five Nights at Freddy's series, with loads of tools and systems, 56 different animatronics, Easter eggs, and the hardest challenge within the base games. In this video, we'll be covering every inch of this game. Feel free to pause, rewind, or skip around for any particularly AI-dense sections in this video. There will be timestamps on screen here, and YouTube chapters for all the different sections. Thank you all so much for waiting so patiently for this video, and with that said, here is a complete breakdown of the AI within Ultimate Custom Night, and a complete guide of 5020 and 5020 No Death Coin. First, before we go over how each animatronic works in detail, I'll give a basic gameplay explanation along with how all the universal mechanics work within UCN. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible so we can get to the more interesting animatronic sections. Unlike the other mainline FNAF games, there are no strict nights in Ultimate Custom Night. Upon launching the game, you're simply greeted with a menu of 50 animatronics, and you can adjust their AIs accordingly. There are 4 different offices that you can choose from, but for the majority of this video, I'll be playing in the FNAF 4 office, as it's the brightest, making it the easiest to see different animatronics. Within your office, you have 4 separate doors, all of which can be closed with the keyboard during all times of the night. Both the flashlight and the Freddy mask return from FNAF 2, though unlike FNAF 2, you're able to use both at the same time. Within the cameras, you'll now see that you have 3 alternate systems that you'll have to manage. You have the traditional camera system that is seen in most FNAF games, a view of the vent system which leads to your front vent door, and the air duct system which leads to the 2 air ducts in your office. There are also 5 different tools and a desk fan that you can use and activate throughout the night with numbers 1 through 5 and the spacebar on the keyboard. We'll go over what they do shortly in the Universal Mechanics section. You'll have to be able to consistently manage all of these different systems, tools, and doors in order to complete the hardest challenges in this game. If that sounds like a lot, that's because it is. But hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of exactly how all of this game works. Now, let's start off with the universal mechanics that are present throughout the game, regardless of what animatronics that you have on. The first and most obvious of these is your power. Like most FNAF games, power is what prevents you from just stalling out with every single door closed the entire night. Though, because of how much you have to deal with in this game, the power is much more generous compared to other FNAF games. The displayed power uses a 0 to 100% scale, but the actual in-game power value gets much more specific, instead starting at 10,100. You don't normally see this extra percent because it will disappear right as you enter the night, but if you buffer the power generator input by pressing 1 as the screen fades in, you'll be able to see that you actually start with 101%, or 10,100 power value. Every 0.12 seconds, or 120 milliseconds, the real power value will be subtracted by 1 plus the amount of usage currently in your office. You can see here that I have the power value displayed on screen next to the percentage-based power. All of the doors, fan, and all of the tools except for the power generator will always add 1 usage to the bar. Different items do not add more or less power drain. It takes the same amount of power to power a desk fan as it does the industrial battle grade doors and the AC for the entire building. Even though you can have more than 6 things on at one time, the power usage is capped at 6 when the bar is full. The power generator simply acts as negative usage. For example, if you have 1 door closed and the power generator on, the usage from that door would be counteracted with the power generator, and you'd only lose 1% every 12 seconds from the idle power drain. This also means that when you have the power gen on with no other usage present, the power gen will counteract the idle drain and you'll lose absolutely no power. Along with the power, you'll have to worry about noise, heat, and ventilation. Noise works on a scale of 1 to 6, but unlike power, different distractions will add varying levels of noise to the meter. All of the distractions here have their respective noise levels pictured on screen, and we'll go deeper into all of these in the animatronic section. Next up is temperature. Unlike the game that it was originally taken from, there isn't any RNG in how the temperature works, or the tools that affect it. The temperature will naturally increase by 1 per second if you don't have anything on to cool the building down, and has a max of 120 degrees. When the temperature reaches 120 degrees, you don't won't die or anything like in FNAF 6, but certain animatronics and the ventilation will become more aggressive. With silent ventilation on, the heat will instead increase once every 2 seconds instead of once every second. And with the heater on, it'll increase an additional degree every 0.25 seconds, for a total of 5 degrees per second. With the fan on, the heat will decrease by 1 every 0.5 seconds, and with the power AC, it'll decrease by 1 every 0.25 seconds. Lastly, the ventilation doesn't have a bar or anything to display it, but it's the main reason that you'll have to pull up the cameras throughout the night. When the night starts, it'll start at a value of 500, and resetting it will also set it back to this value. If you're below 120 degrees, the ventilation will decrease by 1 every 0.1 seconds, or 10 per second. If you're at 120 degrees, it'll decrease at double the rate, with 2 per every 0.1 seconds. The puppet escaping the box and the power being out will both subtract 1 ventilation per frame. Now, you don't normally see this because the screen gets darker as the ventilation goes out, but when the ventilation reaches 0, your cameras will be forcefully pulled up in order to force a death from an animatronic. So, as a general tip, just spam click where the reset ventilation button is when you run out because the cameras will be up. If you don't die after 200 frames, the cameras will be pulled down, then pulled up again. We've already covered what most of the tools do, but just for a little lightning round, all of the tools will use 1 usage of power except for the power generator. The power gen will subtract 1 usage from the existing power drain. Silent ventilation is remarkably pretty useless, changing the natural temperature increase from 1 every second to 1 every 2 seconds. The heater will increase the temp by 1 every 0.25 seconds. The power AC is the exact opposite, decreasing the temperature by 1 every 0.25 seconds. The global music box, or GMB, will wind the puppet's box by 5 every second and stall Chica's MOs. More on those later. I'm not sure where to put this as it doesn't really fit anywhere, but the Faz coins that spawn on the cameras are also RNG. 11 can spawn total on one camera, with each rolling a 1 in 10 chance to appear, and this chance is refreshed every time you switch cameras. And that covers all of the universal mechanics of UCN. Before we get into the much more complex section with the animatronics, I do want to explain some of the basics with UCN's code. First, all of the divisions within any equation are always floored, or rounded down to the nearest whole number. For example, if you were to divide 4 by 3, you would get 1.333 repeating. Flooring 1.33 repeating would result in a value of 1, as it's the nearest whole number when rounding down. Secondly, you'll probably see this random notation pop up here and there when discussing RNG. The number inside the parentheses decides what the random range is, though this range will always include 0. So, random 30 actually means a random number between 0 and 29, including 0 and 29. Random 18 would mean 0 to 17, etc. With that out of the way, we can get to the longest and much more interesting section, the animatronics. So let's go over how every single character works in order of appearance. If 2 characters work together in order to create game mechanics like Bonnie and Foxy, or if they work in a group like the Vent System animatronics or the mediocre melodies in the ducts, we'll discuss these groups together for the ease of time, as this video is already looking to be pretty long. For our first animatronic, we have the classic FNAF 1 Freddy. Freddy will slowly progress through 5 stages in the left hallway as he gets closer to your door. His progression to get to the left door is defined by this equation. Every second, Freddy will add a random value ranging from 0 to his AI level -1 to his progress. Then he'll add an additional 1 value to this progress for every 5 degrees over 60. In increments of 100 for this progress, Freddy will progress in his stages and advance closer to your office. At 400 progress, Freddy can be blocked after the doors closed for 1 full second. Once he reaches 500 progress, he'll jump scare you the next time you pull up the cameras. Bonnie and Foxy work as a duo in their mechanics. They both reside in Pirate's Cove, but Foxy requires you to look at him and Bonnie doesn't like being looked at. Luckily, you can tell who's in Pirate's Cove based on the figurine in the office. This figurine has a 1 in 3 chance to change every 2 seconds, though it won't change until the animation of the camera flipping down is playing. This is very important as you can 0 frame flip to change the figurine without committing to being in the cameras at all. We'll talk more about 0 frame flips in the strategy segment as it's very important for 50/20 mode. If you do look at Pirate's Cove while Bonnie is there, he'll disable the camera feed for 300 plus AI times 20 frames. Aside from looking at Foxy, this is purely a visual change, as you can still interact with things within the camera menu, you just can't see anything. For example, you could view Funtime Foxy's Showtime or buy anything at the prize corner with the cameras disabled. But if Bonnie and Foxy happen to switch, looking at Foxy won't do anything until the cameras are fully functional again. Bonnie's AI is pretty simple, all things considered. But the same cannot be said for Foxy, who is one of the most complicated characters in the entire game. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions with how Foxy works in this game. When the Foxy figure is on the table, Foxy will constantly progress every frame, regardless of how many pieces are in the office. This is why if you leave the Foxy figurine on the table for long enough, even with no pieces in the office, Foxy can just straight up jump scare you. How much Foxy progresses every frame is defined by this equation. This H variable can range from 0 to 3. Every time that Foxy advances a stage, this value will be added by 1. Though, when you look at Foxy in the cameras, this H value will reset back to 0. Foxy's stage progression is determined by this equation. Once this equation becomes true, he has a 2 in 3 chance to progress to his next stage. Even though this variable H can only go up to 3, Foxy has 10 stages total. The first 4 are visible within Pirate's Cove. Then, stages 5 to 9 can be seen through Foxy's various body parts entering through the office. Once Foxy has entered stages 5 to 9, meaning any part of his body is in the office, he'll still progress by 1 every frame even if the Bonnie figure is on the table. Once Foxy's head is on the table, he's reached stage 9, and the next time that he progresses a stage, he'll be in his kill state. At this point, he has a 1 in 10 chance to jump scare you every frame that you're in the cameras. Next up is Chica. Chica's mechanic is all centered around her getting angry when the music box is not on. Chica works in 3 stages. Stage 0 is when you can audibly hear pots and pans throughout the building. This audio cue will play loudly when you're selected on the kitchen camera, moderately when you're in the cameras but not with the kitchen selected, and quietly when you're just chilling in the office. Every 15 seconds, Chica has an AI and 4D chance to progress if the GMB is not on, or if the music has not been changed. Once the audio for the pots and pans has stopped playing, Chica has entered stage 1. Assuming that Chica succeeds her next movement opportunity, you'll be required to change the music for the music box before the next 15-second interval in order to send Chica back to stage 0. If Chica manages to reach stage 2, she'll enter her jump scare stage. Once in this state, she can no longer revert back to stages 0 and 1. She now has a 1 in 5 chance to jump scare you on every half-second interval once the cameras have been pulled up. Next in our character order is Toy Freddy.
Oh, who is it?
No! Toy Freddy is infamous for being one of the most difficult characters to deal with in 50/20 mode, but his AI is actually pretty simple. In Cam 8, Toy Freddy will be playing a simpler version of FNAF against Mr. Hugs. If Toy Freddy loses his game against Mr. Hugs, he gets mad and wants you to lose yours. Now, how does he work? Toy Freddy's game has 3 cameras total, with 3 respective doors. Every 10 seconds, if Mr. Hugs is being blocked by the correct door, he'll have an AI and 30 chance to move. If Mr. Hugs happens to be at an open door for more than 1000 minus AI times 5 frames, which on 20 AI equates to more than 15 seconds, Toy Freddy will game over and enter his kill stage. Once in this stage, Toy Freddy has a 1 in 10 chance to jump scare the player on every 0.5 second interval when the cameras are up. A very important tip when dealing with Toy Freddy is freezing Mr. Hugs. Mr. Hugs is unable to move when you're looking at Toy Freddy's camera on 10-second intervals, regardless of if he's blocked with the correct door or not. This is used in the 50/20 strategy and helps increase consistency with one of the most RNG-based animatronics. Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica are our next pair of animatronics. They'll both enter the office and start a blackout, requiring you to put on the mask to make them go away. They work in a very similar manner, but have a few differences. Every 15 seconds for Toy Bonnie and 14 seconds for Toy Chica, they'll roll an AI and 60 chance to appear in the office. Once Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica enter, they have a randomized starting leave value that is generated from 0 to 99 when they enter the office. This leave value will count up by 1 every frame that the mask is on. For Toy Bonnie, if you're looking at him with the mask on, this leave value will instead be 2 per frame. For Toy Chica, it's 3 per frame. This is why Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica seem to leave faster if you're looking in their direction when they appear. Once this leave value reaches 200, Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica will begin to exit the office. Once they change their direction, you can safely take off the mask. You do not need to wait for them to be fully off screen. If they're in the office for longer than 250 frames, the lights will begin to flicker. If they're in the office for 300 frames, you'll get jump scared. Similar to Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica, Balloon Boy and JJ work nearly identically with some small changes in their AI. Every time the camera is flipped up, Balloon Boy and JJ have an AI in 30 chance to appear in the side vent. Once they appear in the vent, a counter set at 300 minus AI times 5 frames, which on 20 AI is 3.33 seconds, begins to count down. Once this counter reaches 0 and the cameras are pulled up, Balloon Boy or JJ will enter the office. Once in the office, Balloon Boy will disable the flashlight for 600 frames, and JJ will disable the doors for 500 frames. When both Balloon Boy and JJ are in the vent, Balloon Boy will always have priority over JJ, even if JJ is visibly shown in the vent. Interestingly, when Balloon Boy enters the office, he'll actually completely delete JJ from the vent. Both Balloon Boy and JJ will bonk on the vent door and leave after 0.5 seconds with the side vent closed. And that was the first row of our characters. If you thought that was a lot, we're just getting started. Next up is Withered Bonnie. Every 13 seconds when the camera is up, Withered Bonnie has an AI in 30 chance to spawn. Once you've put the mask on, Withered Bonnie will continuously roll a 1 in 30 chance to leave every frame. If the mask has been worn for more than 60 frames or 1 full second, another 1 in 30 chance begins running every frame. Interestingly, this second check doesn't require the mask to be on, so Withered Bonnie can disappear without the mask on if you happen to time it properly. Once Withered Bonnie has been standing in the office for more than 250 minus AI times 4 frames, which on 20 AI equates to 2.83 seconds, he'll jump scare you. Technically, with the worst possible luck, you could have the mask on for Withered Bonnie's entire blackout and he could still jump scare you, as there's no guarantee that he leaves, just an insanely low chance for him to do this. Next we have Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy is fairly straightforward. He has an AI plus 1 in 40 chance to spawn once the camera is pulled up. Once the camera is dropped and he's in the office, you have 80 minus his AI level frames to react, which on 20 AI equates to exactly 1 second. Once you put the mask on or pull up the cameras, Golden Freddy will despawn. Note that you can accidentally 0 frame flip the mask the same way you can with the cameras, and if you do this, Golden Freddy will not despawn, usually resulting in a death.
Oh, the 0 frame mask.
Oh my god.
Up next is the Puppet. The Puppet's mechanic from FNAF 2 returns in the form of the music box, which will drain at a rate determined by this equation every 0.5 seconds. The music box has a max wind of 100 progress. Manually winding it will add 10 to this counter every 0.3 seconds. It's also worth noting that because of how division works in clickteam, in that every calculation is always floored down to the nearest whole number, the Puppet actually only has 4 AI levels, those being 0 AI, 1 to 9 AI, 10 to 19 AI, and 20 AI. Thankfully, we aren't forced to go on the Puppet's camera and manually wind the box throughout the night. The global music box tool will add 5 to the Puppet's progress every second. Once the music box is at 0, the Puppet will escape, and will now have a 1 in 3 chance every cumulative second interval that the cameras are up to jump scare you. Though the music box running out doesn't just affect the Puppet. It also causes the ventilation to drain by 1 per frame, giving you 8.33 seconds to reset once Puppet escapes, assuming you have full ventilation. It is actually possible to survive a full night with the Puppet out of the music box, and this is actually a strategy used pretty frequently in green runs, when players attempt to beat nights while saving as much power as possible. Next up we have 3 Phantom animatronics, the first of which is Phantom Mangle. Phantom Mangle has an AI in 60 chance to spawn. If you stare at him for longer than 50 frames on the camera, he'll manually drop your cameras and enter the office, increasing your noise level for 400 plus AI times 10 frames. When on the cameras, clicking any of the buttons to alternate between systems, including clicking the button for the current system that you're on, will despawn Phantom Mangle completely. Phantom Freddy has a progress bar like any other animatronic, but instead of it counting up to a value, it starts at a set value and counts down to 0. At the beginning of the night, Phantom Freddy's progress will start at 255. Every quarter of a second, this number will be subtracted by Phantom Freddy's AI level divided by 5 plus 1 if the flashlight is not on, which on 20 AI equates to 5 every quarter of a second and 20 every second. When you shine your flashlight on Phantom Freddy, he'll add 5 to his progress every frame, with this progress being capped at 400. When his progress reaches 0, he jump scares you, and his progress is reset to 1000. If any of the vent characters are waiting in the vent opening, they will be forced into the office 40 frames into Phantom Freddy's jump scare, meaning you can react to Phantom Freddy's jump scare and close the vent to prevent death. Also, as a bit of a side note, in Phantom Freddy's character description, it says that heat causes him to appear faster, but this is only half true. He'll subtract an additional 1 progress every 50 milliseconds, but only if the building is at 120 degrees. He'll act the same at 60 degrees as he does at 119 degrees. Phantom Balloon Boy is our last Phantom of the 3. When the cameras are pulled up, Phantom BB has an AI in 50 chance to spawn. Clicking on any of the camera buttons, including the camera button that you're currently on, or switching between the systems within the monitor will despawn Phantom BB. Though if you click on the same system that you're currently on, this will despawn Phantom Mangle, but it won't despawn Phantom BB. Phantom Balloon Boy's attack is determined by this equation, which on 20 AI equates to 1 full second of reaction time. Like Phantom Mangle, he will force your monitor down when he jump scares you. Next up is Nightmare Freddy.
No light can save you now.
Nightmare Freddy is similar to how he worked in FNAF 4, gradually adding frettles until he jump scares the player. Every second that the camera is up, Nightmare Freddy rolls an AI in 30 chance to add another frettle to the office. A total of 5 frettles can visually spawn, but the frettle count will go up to 7. Once the frettle count reaches 7, Nightmare Freddy will jump scare the player. To get rid of the frettles, you have to flash them with the flashlight. With 1 to 2 frettles in the office, the flashlight has a 1 in 20 chance to despawn the frettles every frame. With 3 or more, this chance is increased to a 1 in 10 every frame. Similar to Withered Bonnie, this means that you could, in theory, flash the frettles for the entire night and they never disappear. Next up, we have the 3 plushie animatronics, Nightmare Bonnie, Baby, and Nightmare Mangle. Once one of them spawns in camera 2, you'll have to buy their respective plushie within 20 seconds or they'll jump scare you on the next camera flip. These animatronics will show up at 1, 3, and 5 AM, with any of them being able to spawn at any of these times. The only thing that the plushie animatronics AI level determines is the price for their plushies, which is determined by this equation. This means that from 1 to 9 AI, the plushie price will be 10 Faz coins, from 10 to 19 AI, the plushie price will be 15 Faz coins, and on 20 AI, the plushie price will be 20 Faz coins. If your camera is set on camera 2 for the entire duration of a plushie animatronic's kill window, it will stall that animatronic and they will not be able to attack you. Our next pair of animatronics are Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare. On every 5-second interval when the camera is up, Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare have an AI in 40 chance to spawn each. When they spawn, you'll hear a laugh that pans to either side of the office depending on who it was, with Nightmare Fredbear taking the left door and Nightmare taking the right door. You also see their eyes in the opening of the door. Their jump scare timer is defined by this equation. Like most other door characters, they'll bonk on the door and leave after 0.5 seconds. Jacko Chica is the main reason that you don't want the temperature of the office getting too high. If the office is over 90 degrees, Jacko Chica will add a random amount ranging from 0 to 1 minus her AI level to her progress every second. When you close both doors under 100 degrees, it will decrease her progress by 10 every frame. If her progress reaches 500, she will jump scare you regardless of whether the camera monitor is up or not. Nightmare Balloon Boy is really simple, just flash him when he's standing up and don't flash him when he's sitting down. Though, if you shine him while he's standing, you can flash him as much as you want until you pull up the cameras again without getting jump scared. He has an AI in 40 chance to stand up once the camera is flipped. If you pull up the camera again while he's standing or shine him while he's sitting, he will jump scare you. Old Man Consequences will roll an AI in 30 chance to spawn after 5 seconds of him not being on screen. This can only happen if his minigame is not currently active and your cameras are not currently locked by him. Once the minigame is active, this equation determines how long you have to catch his fish. If you fail to catch his fish, this equation will determine how long he locks your monitor for, which on 20 AI equates to 8.33 seconds. Ballora is next. Every 14 seconds, Ballora has an AI in 40 chance to attack from either hall. Her music volume will increase by 1 per frame, along with the lights beginning to flicker 100 frames into her attack. You will always have 170 frames or 2.83 seconds to react to Bellora's attack, regardless of her AI level. She will disable all of the cameras until her attack is done, but you could still watch Plushtrap and Foxy during this disabled state. It's purely visual. Night Marionette is up next, and he's one of the most difficult threats present within the actual office of UCN. He'll spawn into the office and will require you to have your cursor off of him. If it's on him for too long, he'll slowly materialize and eventually jump scare you. Night Marionette is pretty interesting, and there's a bit of weird stuff that we have to go over here. When the night first starts, Night Marionette will randomly spawn based on a random number generated from 1 to 6. A value of 1 to 4 means that he's in the office, and 5 to 6 means that he's in the upper left corner where he's not visible but can still jump scare you. More on this later. As for his actual jump scare timer, he has a counter that starts at 255 progress. When your cursor is over Night Marionette, it subtracts AI divided by 5 plus 1 from his progress every frame, giving you 51 frames or 0.85 seconds to get off of his head before he jump scares you on 20 AI. When your cursor isn't on Night Marionette, his counter will increase by 1 every frame. Night Marionette will only be able to randomly roll another number between that 1 to 6 range when his progress is at 255 and he's fully phased out, in which case he'll roll every second. You can see in this image here all of Night Marionette's possible spawns and each index that they correspond to. Now, as you saw earlier, Night Marionette has some weird jank with the top left corner. Basically, in order to keep Night Marionette from constantly spawning in the office, Scott added a location on the very top left pixel of the office, in which you can't even see Night Marionette, but he is there, which is why it looked like I just got jump scared out of nowhere here, but I was actually on the 1 pixel hitbox that Night Marionette has here. Despite being considered the hardest character in 50/20 mode, Funtime Foxy's AI actually has nothing to do with his mechanics. 1 AI Funtime Foxy is the exact same as 20 AI Funtime Foxy. Once he's toggled on, his showtime hours will be randomized from 1 to 3 AM at the beginning of the night. You'll have to watch his showtimes on the exact frame that they're active. Just as he says in his jump scare quote,
"Showtimes are on the hour, not a moment before and not a moment later."
When you fail to watch Funtime Foxy during his showtime, he will jump scare you instantly. However, he can be cam stalled when you have his camera selected on the monitor. This will instead result in you getting jump scared when you pull up the cameras rather than directly on the showtime. After you successfully view his showtime, he'll randomly choose the next showtime to be 1 to 3 hours later. 6 AM showtimes do exist, and Funtime Foxy can jump scare you at 6 AM if he has a 6 AM showtime, though only if you're not on the Funtime Cove camera. You see, Funtime Foxy is cam stalled, but only until you flip your cameras again. So if you miss a showtime and you're not on the Funtime Cove camera, you just die instantly. But if you are on Funtime Foxy's camera, he'll wait to jump scare you until the next cam flip. This means that Funtime Foxy could have 2 showtimes at 3 AM and 6 AM, or 6 showtimes throughout the entire night depending on your luck. Coming off of one of the most difficult animatronics in UCN, now we come to one of the easiest, and that's Trash in the Gang. Trash in the Gang is 3 animatronics separated into 2 groups. The first group is just number 1 Crate and Bucket Bob, and the second group is just Mr. Can Do. Starting with Mr. Can Do, he'll block a random camera in your camera system and can be particularly annoying when he spawns on Toy Freddy's camera when you're trying to find Mr. Hugs. He'll generate a random number with a range of 0 to 28 minus his AI level every time the cameras are down. So when set to 20 AI, he'll generate a random number with a range of 0 to 8. If this number happens to be in the range of 1 to 8, he'll spawn on the camera with the corresponding number. If the random number is 0, he won't spawn at all. Unlike the Phantom animatronics, switching between cameras or camera systems will not despawn Mr. Can Do. You'll have to pull the cameras down and pull them back up. Number 1 Crate and Bucket Bob will just create a loud noise instead of blocking the cameras. They have an AI in 30 chance to spawn every time the camera is flipped up. Once number 1 Crate has spawned, she'll whisper something when she first appears, then continually whisper every 7 seconds. Once number 1 Crate has spawned, she has a 50% chance to jump scare every 3 seconds. This is similar to Withered Bonnie and Nightmare Freddy from earlier, where, with bad enough luck, number 1 Crate could just stay in our office forever. But it wouldn't really matter because she doesn't really do anything outside of whisper some nice ASMR. Once the jump scare starts, it will last for 50 frames. The animatronic in the jump scare will have a 50% chance to change on every 1 second interval. Despite Trash and Gang being one of the easiest animatronics in UCN, they have some pretty complicated AI. However, our next animatronic is both very easy, some would say he's even helpful, and has very simple AI. Helpy has an AI in 40 chance to spawn when the camera is pulled up. This equation will determine how long he can be in the office before he jump scares you. If Helpy jump scares you, he'll force the camera down if it's up and play an air horn sound effect. You would think this air horn would increase the global noise value, but it actually doesn't. It only affects Music Man, not any of the other animatronics that are affected by sound. Up next is Rockstar Freddy. Rockstar Freddy will roll an AI in 30 chance every 30 seconds to decide if he wants some coins. Once this 30-second check succeeds, Rockstar Freddy will begin demanding coins once the cameras are pulled up. Once Rockstar Freddy begins demanding coins, he'll say,
"Please deposit 5 coins."
5 times every 3 seconds. Then he'll say,
"Please deposit 5 coins."
in a more impatient tone 3 more times. Then he'll simply say,
"Please deposit, please deposit, please deposit."
3 more times before having enough and then just jump scaring you. This gives you a total of 27 seconds before he's fed up and jump scares you. By using the heater, you can make Rockstar Freddy glitch out. If the heater is on for more than 50 frames, Rockstar Freddy will begin to have a 1/2 chance to stop asking for coins every second, even if you turn the heater off.
Please deposit.
Freddy doesn't.
You are attempting to trick Freddy. Please deposit 5 coins. Thank you for depositing 5 coins.
His twitching and voice glitching with the heater on have a 2 in 3 and 1 in 3 chance to happen every quarter-second interval, respectively. Rockstar Bonnie shares the 13-second interval with Withered Bonnie, but is considerably more dangerous and is why people avoid these intervals. On these 13-second intervals, he has an AI in 30 chance to spawn if the cameras are up. Once Rockstar Bonnie spawns, you'll need to find his guitar on the camera monitor and click it to make him go away. It'll always appear on the bottom left corner in 4 places on the cameras, those being the left hallway, right hallway, Funtime Cove, and Toy Freddy's room. Once Rockstar Bonnie has been waiting in the office for 15 seconds, the lights will begin to flicker. Once he's been waiting for 16.67 seconds, he'll jump scare you. Rockstar Chica is one of the most misunderstood characters in the entire game, but her AI is actually pretty simple. Rockstar Chica's mechanic has to do with the wet floor sign in the office. Basically, Rockstar Chica will have a 10-second timer that begins counting down that pauses when the camera is up. Once this cumulative 10-second timer has fully counted down and Rockstar Chica is not in either hall already, Rockstar Chica will roll an AI in 30 chance to spawn. This is why it can sometimes feel like RNG when Rockstar Chica decides to jump scare you, as her spawn timer is paused whenever the cameras are up. And in something like 50/20 mode, you're going to be pulling up the cameras a lot for a very short duration of time, so it can feel kind of random. It's completely random which side she decides to spawn on, but having the wet floor sign on the side that she spawns on will instantly despawn her. After Rockstar Chica has been in a hallway for 15 seconds, she'll check 3 conditions. If the camera is up, her door isn't closed, and you aren't viewing her camera, she will jump scare you. Rockstar Foxy is up next. On every minute interval, Rockstar Foxy's parrot appearing is determined by this equation. When clicking on Rockstar Foxy's parrot, he can either decide to help you or not. Whether or not Rockstar Foxy decides to help you is determined by this equation. If the number generated from this equation is under 60, he'll help you, giving you 4 options to help, all doing exactly what they sound like. If that number is over 60, he'll jump scare you. On 20 AI, this comes out to a 20 in 61 chance, or a 32.7% chance that Rockstar Foxy will help you. Next up is Music Man, and Music Man is the main check for the noise level in UCN, so he's a bit complicated. Music Man has a level, or progress, whatever you really want to call it, that determines how close he is to jump scaring you, but we're going to call this his anger. The noise level in UCN works in a system of bars. We went over this in the universal section, but for what matters here, this is no bars, this is 1 bar, this is 2 bars, and this is 3 bars. If the player is making 0 noise and the bar is completely empty, Music Man's anger will be subtracted by 5 every frame. If the player is only making 1 bar of noise, his anger will be subtracted by 1 every frame. If the noise meter is at 2 bars, the amount he adds is determined by this equation, with him adding this value every 0.02 seconds. If the noise meter is at 3 bars or more, he'll add that same amount, but every single frame. This means that on 20 AI, Music Man will add 5 to his anger every 0.02 seconds at 2 noise, and every frame at 3 noise. If Music Man's anger is between 5,000 and 6,500, he'll begin to crash his cymbals every 3 seconds. If his anger is between 6,500 and 8,000, he'll begin to crash his cymbals every 2 seconds. Once his anger value is above 8,000, he'll crash every 1 second. Then, finally, at 10,000 anger value, he'll jump scare you. It's also worth noting that Helpy will instantly add 2,500 to Music Man's anger if he jump scares you. No. We have 2 distraction animatronics up next, those being El Chip and Funtime Chica. Every 10 seconds, aside from the 420 and 430 intervals, El Chip rolls an AI in 30 chance to appear. His ad can display 3 separate images. Simply pressing enter, the skip button on the ad, or waiting 300 frames will make the ad disappear. Also, for whatever reason, El Chip cannot spawn while Phone Guy is talking. Every 35 seconds, Funtime Chica rolls an AI in 30 chance to appear. She'll create a distortion effect that will last anywhere from 3.33 to 8.31 seconds if visual effects are on. Simply turning off visual effects makes her completely useless. Similar to Fredbear and Nightmare, Scrap Baby will appear on a 5-second intervals when the camera is up, rolling an AI in 30 chance to do so. Once she's in the office, she'll use this exact same system to look up at you, requiring the cameras to be open on a 5-second interval and to roll that same AI in 30 chance. When she looks up, you'll have to shock her with the button on your desk, and this will take away 1% power. Shocking her when she's not looking at you won't do anything, aside from draining the same 1%. If you fail to shock her when she's standing up and you pull up the cameras, she'll have an AI in 100 chance to kill you on every single frame that the cameras are up, making Scrap Baby one of the most dangerous animatronics that can't just flat out kill you on a cam flip. Scrap Trap, or Afton, has one of the simplest mechanics in the entire game. Every 29 seconds, he'll have a 1 in 4 chance to show up. His AI level does not affect this chance. What his AI level does affect is the amount of time that it will take him to get to the office. The required reaction time for his attack is determined by this equation. Unlike other animatronics that spawn at the door, he doesn't leave based on a separate door timer that runs when the door is closed. Instead, the door must be in a closed state when his reaction timer reaches 1. So if you were to open the door on the last frame of Scrap Trap's attack sequence, he'll get in and jump scare you. Lefty is affected by noise, temperature, and the global music box, so his AI gets pretty complicated. First, we'll go over his progress, then we'll go over all the different ways that he can add to said progress. If there's more than 1 bar of noise on the noise meter, Lefty begins rolling an AI in 100 check every frame. If this check succeeds, he'll add the amount of noise currently on the bar to his progress. The game reuses this exact same check for noise for his temperature mechanic. When the temperature in the building is warmer than 80 degrees, Lefty will begin to roll that same AI in 100 check every single frame. If the check succeeds, 1 is added to Lefty's progress. If the temperature of the building exceeds 100 degrees, the same AI in 100 check begins running twice per frame. Having the global music box on will stop Lefty from progressing, even if the building is burning down and you're going crazy with noise in the office. The GMB will then begin to decrease Lefty's progress by 1 per frame. Lefty has 6 total stages for his progress, operating on increments of 300. Once he reaches 1,800 progress, he's guaranteed to jump scare you at every 1 second interval when you have the cameras up. Though he can be cam stalled in this kill state if you're looking at camera 3. Phone Guy has some pretty quirky mechanics with his AI. You may think that the mute call button has random locations when it shows up, but it actually follows a set path around the office, which is what you're watching now. Then, once Phone Guy begins calling, the button stops in its tracks and becomes visible. For his actual spawn mechanics, he works on 20-second intervals. If he's not currently calling the office and Didi or Zor is not present, he has an AI in 30 chance to enter the office. How long you have to mute his call is determined by this equation. If you fail to mute the call, he'll choose a random call from any of the first 3 FNAF games, where he's alive, of course. Once he's called the office for 1 minute, he has a 50% chance to hang up the phone early, and this 1-minute timer will carry over between calls. If this chance fails, he's just going to play out the entire phone call. It's also worth noting that Phone Guy will just get completely erased if Didi or Zor happens to spawn while he's trying to call the office or while he's currently calling the office.
Things you can expect to see during your first week here.
With Phone Guide done, we still have two groupings of animatronics to talk about. Everyone that we just went over is active within the camera system or directly present in your office. These two groupings of animatronics are active within the vent system and duct system respectively. We'll go over the vent system first. The vent animatronics consist of Mangle, Springtrap, Withered Chica, Molten Freddy, and Ennard. When animatronics move throughout the vent system, they have a movement speed that can vary between animatronics. What this movement speed actually determines is a box in front of all of the animatronics that is normally invisible. Whenever the sprite for a character's head is no longer overlapping with their respective box, they'll teleport to the box's location. The speed value doesn't control the animatronic sprite directly, it controls this movement box. For the ease of time, here's everyone's starting movement speed in order from fastest to slowest. However, vent animatronics won't keep this same speed for the entire night. Every 6 seconds, each animatronic will roll for their speed using an equation. For everyone except Molten Freddy, their speed can be a random number from 1 to half of their AI level. For Molten Freddy, his range is anywhere from 2 to half of his AI level plus 1. That covers movement speed. Now we can get into some unique differences for each vent animatronic. The vent system map has a bunch of different corners that animatronics can take to vary the length in their paths to the office, though they will always ultimately end up at the same place. However, different animatronics are much smarter and will choose more efficient pathways to get to the office. Mangle will simply roll a 1 in 3 when entering the vent system to choose any of the 3 pathways. Despite being the mastermind of the series, Springtrap sure is pretty stupid. He'll always take the longest path to your office, and every time he turns a corner in his path, his movement speed will be reset to 1. Joining him in this pathway is Withered Chica, who works identically to Springtrap in both movement speed and pathing. I wonder if this was intentional for lore reasons. She was the first victim after all. Anyway, Ennard will always take the middle path through the vents, and when turning corners, his movement speed is reset to 5. He's also only partially visible for 20 frames once his character icon moves. Molten Freddy's pathing is the exact same as Ennard's, with his movement speed resetting to 5 on turns and always taking the middle path. The last differences we have to cover with vent animatronics is how their attacks work and how they respond to vent snares. The vent snares work functionally the same as doors for some animatronics. When their icon overlaps a closed vent snare for 0.5 seconds, they'll bonk on it, awarding you a Faz coin and resetting them back to the start of the vent system. Mangle and Withered Chica are the only animatronics that can actually be blocked by the vent snare. Springtrap, Molten Freddy, and Ennard simply do not care and will phase right through it. Once Mangle reaches the vent opening and the camera is up, she will immediately enter the office. From here, she can never leave and will permanently add 1 to the noise. When the camera is up, she has a 1 in 30 chance to jump scare you on every second interval. Withered Chica works similarly to Mangle when reaching the vent opening. She'll just camp there indefinitely, then, if the vent door is open, she'll instantly get jammed in the vent the moment the cameras are up, leaving you unable to close the door. Once in this state, she has a 1 in 15 chance on every second interval when the cameras are up to get unstuck and jump scare you. When Withered Chica is stuck, she will block every animatronic from entering the office except for Mangle. Molten Freddy, Springtrap, and Ennard's jumpscare equations are all the exact same. Once they arrive at the vent opening, indicated by a sound cue from Molten Freddy and Ennard and a visual cue from Springtrap, they'll use this equation for their jumpscare time. On 20 AI, this equates to 3.33 seconds of reaction time. Once these 3.33 seconds are up, the moment the cameras are pulled up and they aren't blocked by the vent door or Withered Chica, they'll jumpscare you. Though there is actually a really weird quirk with Molten Freddy's jump scare that doesn't apply to anyone else. Remember earlier when we were talking about how movement speed works? Whenever the sprite of a character's head is no longer making contact with the movement box, they'll teleport to it. Well, the game uses this same system for jump scares. Whenever the character sprite is touching this kill box here, the kill timer begins to count up. However, the sound cues for Molten Freddy and Ennard and the visual cue for Springtrap won't activate until they're actually inside the box. For Springtrap and Ennard, this doesn't matter, but because of Molten Freddy's giant head, he can actually overlap with the kill box before playing his sound cue. In some cases, he could even just jump scare you outright without ever playing the cue, making him kinda unfair sometimes. That's all for our vent animatronics. Now we can move on to our third and last system within the camera monitor, and that's the duct system. In the ducts, there are 5 animatronics, the mediocre melodies. Similar to the vent animatronics, they all share common traits, but have unique differences. Instead of working with movement speed, duct animatronics operate on movement opportunities and intervals. For all 5 duct animatronics, they have an AI and 30 chance to move, though their intervals do differ a bit. Happy Frog's interval is 1 second, Mr. Hippo's is every 0.95 seconds, Pig Patch and Orville both move on 0.9 second intervals, and Ned Bear moves on 0.85 second intervals. Now, here's what's actually going on with the duct animatronic movement. Basically, the duct animatronics will choose a square that they're currently overlapping, then on a successful movement, they'll move to it. Within the duct system, you have 2 main tools to fend off the mediocre melodies, those being the audio lure and the heater. Happy Frog, Mr. Hippo, and Pig Patch are all fooled 100% of the time by the audio lure, meaning they can be completely locked in place by it. This is why you'll always see people place an audio lure at the very left of the duct system in the beginning of 50-20 strategies, because with the right duct closed and an audio lure on the left side, Mr. Hippo, Pig Patch, and Happy Frog literally have no way to get to your entrance. However, Ned Bear and Orville are a little bit smarter. Ned Bear is only fooled 50% of the time by the audio lure, and Orville is only fooled 10% of the time by the audio lure. The other main tool for the player to use against the duct animatronics is the heater. Though, like the lure, it affects every animatronic differently. Happy Frog is completely immune to the heater. Mr. Hippo and Pig Patch work the exact same. When the heater is on, a 1 in 50 chance is ran every 0.1 seconds. If this check succeeds, they will be pushed back. Also, I should probably mention here that when an animatronic gets pushed back, they go the whole way back to the entrance of the ducts, and it's random which of the starting entrances they'll go to. The heater is the most effective against Ned Bear and Orville. Instead of a 1 in 50 chance every 0.1 seconds, this check will instead be ran every single frame. Interestingly, the heater isn't guaranteed to work on any of the 5 animatronics, so with bad enough luck, everyone can just completely ignore it even if it's on the entire night. As far as attacks work, every duct animatronic works the exact same. If they're sitting in an open duct, they'll begin counting the amount of total seconds you've been in the cams. Once you've been in the cams for a cumulative 0.5 seconds, they'll have a 50% chance to jump scare you. If they're sitting in a closed duct for a total of 30 seconds, they'll have a 1 in 3 chance to return to the middle section of the ducts. And that finally covers the first 50 animatronics. But there still is 6 secret animatronics, DD and Zor, to cover. DD is a secret character that can add character to the night when she appears. At the beginning of the night, 4 1 in 10 chances are rolled, then added together. Whatever this number results in is the amount of times that DD will be added into the night. When she spawns in, it happens on 45-second intervals. DD can't just add any character though. She's only able to add 22 characters from the main roster, who are all pictured on screen here, and all of the 6 secret characters. DD can also increase the AI of one of these characters if they're already present, though she can only bump this AI value up to a max of 10. And will only be able to bump a character up if their AI is less than 5. Zor, or XOR, is essentially an upgraded version of DD. When the point value of a night is set to exactly 10,000, Zor's spawn chance will increase from 1 in 1,000 on a normal night to a 1/2 chance on every 10-second interval. Zor actually becomes visible on 11 seconds, 21 seconds, 31 seconds, and so on. So we're going to refer to Zor spawns by these intervals. Also, note that Zor cannot spawn after 251, making this the latest possible Zor spawn with odds of 1 in 131,000. Once Zor spawns, they'll add 6 secret characters in the exact same order every time. The order is Shadow Bonnie, Plushtrap, Nightmare Chica, Bonnet, Mini Renas, then Lolbit. Each of these secret characters will be added 7 seconds after the last one, though some will require a cam flip to actually activate. First up is Shadow Bonnie. Once the cameras are up for 7 seconds after Zor is spawned, Shadow Bonnie will appear when the cameras are dropped. He'll darken the office and the doors for 20 seconds. Plushtrap is up next, and out of all these characters, he is by far the most important of the secret characters. He'll appear in Funtime Foxy's camera and will require you to look at him until he goes away for the rest of the night. When Plushtrap spawns on this chair is always 14 seconds after when Zor spawns. If Zor spawns at 11 seconds, Plushtrap will appear at 25 seconds. If Zor spawns at 21 seconds, Plushtrap will appear at 35 seconds, and so on. Once Plushtrap spawns in, he generates a random value between 700 and 1199. This will be the value that defines how much progress he has until he attacks. His progress will then begin to rapidly increase at a rate of 1 per frame. If he finishes progressing to his kill stage, Plushtrap will jump scare you on the next camera flip. However, he can be cam stalled with the monitor down if you're selected on Funtime Foxy's camera, and will wait until you click off to jump scare you. When watching Plushtrap, you'll have to watch him for a collective 100 frames, or about 1.66 seconds. If you end up clicking off of his camera or pulling the cameras down, the amount that you've watched Plushtrap will save and you can finish watching him at a later time. Also, it's important to note that you can watch Plushtrap when the cameras are disabled, whether it be through Bonnie or Ballora. Next up is Nightmare Chica. As we've already discussed, Nightmare Chica's spawn is directly tied to when Zor appears, with a 21-second difference from the initial Zor spawn. An 11-second Zor will have a 32-second Nightmare Chica, a 21-second Zor 42-second Chica, and so on. Nightmare Chica's progress is defined by the position at the top of her beak. Basically, it starts at -710, and once it reaches 0, you get jump scared. Nightmare Chica's jaws will close at a rate of 1 per frame. The power AC will raise the jaw back up at a rate of 4 per frame. If you can get her jaw position back to -710, she will disappear for the rest of the night. This means that you can have the AC on exactly when Nightmare Chica appears to instantly get rid of her. You won't even see her on screen. Bonnet is next in the order. Once 28 seconds have passed from the initial Zor spawn, Bonnet will be activated. Once activated, Bonnet has a 1/2 chance to appear on 5-second intervals. Once her nose has been clicked, she has a 1-minute cooldown before she's reactivated. Our second to last animatronic is Mini Rena 2. Mini Rena 2 will queue their spawn 35 seconds after Zor has spawned, and they will require a cam flip to spawn. Once they're on your screen, they'll stay there for 33.33 seconds before disappearing on the next camera flip. Once they're gone, they won't return for the rest of the night. And finally, our last animatronic, Lolbit. Despite being our last animatronic, Lolbit is considerably less threatening than he was in Sister Location. You retain control of all of your doors and tools when he's present. He'll just make a ton of noise and requires Lol to be pressed on the keyboard to go away. Lolbit has a 1/2 chance to spawn on every 5-second interval 42 seconds after Zor spawns. Once you get rid of him once, he'll never return. If your L and O keys are broken, Lolbit will naturally despawn after 16.66 seconds. And that covers every single animatronic in Ultimate Custom Night. Now, before we see how everything comes together for all the different 50/20 strategies, I do want to cover the various Easter eggs that you can see in this game. The first Easter egg is simply known as the face, and there's a bunch of different places that the face can appear. First, at the game over screen, the face uses this equation to determine its visibility. This alpha coefficient is what determines the visibility of the image. Basically, 255 alpha coefficient is invisible, with 0 being completely visible. Once the equation is ran, the alpha coefficient will be added by 1 every 0.03 seconds, which causes it to gradually disappear. This all maths out to a 24 in 40 or a 60% chance for the face to be visible for at least a frame. The lower number that you roll, the longer the face will be visible. That's the most complicated appearance of the face, but there are 3 more appearances that it can have throughout the game that are much less complicated. First, when you're in the cameras, the face will run a 1 in 1000 check every second. You'll see it briefly when you drop the cameras, but this can only happen once per night. The sprite can also appear in the left door or the front vent, which have a 1 in 10,000 chance to appear upon starting the night. Both of these sprites roll their chances individually, so it is possible to have both in one night, but the chance of this happening would be a 1 in 100 million. Once the night starts, the sprites will remain there for the entire night. There's also 3 separate FNAF World characters that can appear on the desk: the White Rabbit, Tangle, and the Plant. These all have a 1 in 10,000 chance to appear when you pull up the monitor, and like the face sprites, can all appear at the same time, this time having a 1 in 1 trillion chance. There's also the well-known Easter eggs like deathcoining Golden Freddy when he's on 1AI to trigger the Fredbear jump scare, and setting OMC to 1 and catching his fish to trigger the minigame. And for our last Easter egg, there's a 1 in 10,000 chance that the normal main menu music will be replaced with Afton's screams that normally play in the OMC Easter egg. And that was pretty much everything in UCN. That was a lot, trust me. I know, I've been editing this for like 2 to 3 weeks. It has been literal hell. But now for what I think is the most satisfying part. Now that we know how literally everything works, we can finally talk about how to progress up to and beat 50/20 and 50/20 no death coin. So now that we know the ins and the outs of this game, it's time to see how it all fits together when taking on 50/20 and 50/20 no death coin. The first part of this section will be a guide on how you can progress up to even attempting 50/20, then all the differences in 50/20, then finally 50/20 no death coin and other death coin routes besides Funtime Foxy. If that all sounds like gibberish to you, don't worry, it'll make sense in a bit. The first thing you have to understand about UCN is that not all animatronics are created equally. You might think that the UCN progression graph would look like this, linearly. As you add more animatronics, the game gradually gets more difficult at a constant rate. But in reality, it's more like this, taking an exponential form. Honestly, I would argue that the difference between 4920 and 5020 is greater than 020 and 4020. Now, knowing this, where do we start? Well, firstly, you want to familiarize yourself with the controls in an empty 020 office. Turn everyone off and train your reactions for the flashlight, doors, power generator, fan, and mask. Once you've got the basic controls down and you can navigate quickly between the cameras, you're going to need to learn one of the most important skills in UCN, and that's vent resets. If you can master vent resets, you'll be able to pretty much first try 4020 mode and get a free 8,000 points in the beloved FNAF 4 office. What makes vent resets so powerful is what's known as office stalling. You may have noticed that in the animatronic AI section that when I was talking about almost every single lethal animatronic, I would always say that once the cameras are up for X amount of seconds, or on X second intervals, X animatronic would have a chance to jump scare you. Office stalling is abusing the way that the animatronic jump scares work, and waiting out in the office for as long as possible until you're absolutely forced to go into the cameras so you can reset the ventilation. When going for a vent reset, you're going to want to line your cursor up with the side vent like seen here. Now pull up the cameras, click, then drop the cameras as soon as possible. You want to get really consistent with this, as it's going to be the backbone for every strategy in this game going forward. Once you're comfortable with resetting the ventilation quickly, practice closing the top vent, then resetting the ventilation, then opening the top vent back up. Once you're comfortable with vent resets, with a little bit of practice, you'll be able to jump straight to 4020 mode. Earlier, I mentioned that not all animatronics are created equally. So here's who you're going to want to have off when starting in 4020 mode. Firstly, we're going to want to turn off all of the animatronics that require tools other than the power generator to manage. So turn off Chica, the puppet, Lefty, and Music Man. Then turn off Nedbear and Orville, as they require the heater or really fast vent resets to deal with. Foxy and Toy Freddy are debatably the two hardest characters in the game next to Funtime Foxy, so turn them off as well along with Funtime Foxy. Lastly, Night Marionette is one of the most difficult office animatronics, so for a starting player I would turn him off as well. Now we have our 4020 roster, and while it may look overwhelming, I'd argue that this roster is easier than every other base game max mode, even 420 mode in FNAF 1. While you're loading into the night and see the black screen, hold down the 1 key. This will buffer the power generator input and you'll be able to turn it on right as the night begins. We don't need to use any tools outside of the power generator and fan for the whole night, so you can keep them both on the entire time. This will keep the office at a cool 60 degrees, preventing any animatronics that are angered by heat from attacking while also saving loads of power. Now, once you've loaded into the night, pull up the cameras and change to the duct system. Then, place an audio lure at the very left of the duct system. Because the right duct is closed by default, and Happy Frog, Mr. Hippo, and Pig Patch can never get past the audio lure, we won't ever have to worry about the ducts past this point in the run. Now, switch back to the camera system and select camera 2. Along with office stalling, we're also going to abuse cam stalling during 5020 strategies. Basically, cam stalling abuses the fact that some animatronics require you to not have their camera selected in order to jump scare you. Most notably, the 3 plushie animatronics and Rockstar Chica. Because the 3 plushie animatronics can't jump scare us while we're on this camera, and we don't have any animatronics that would require us to ever select a different camera throughout the night, we can cam stall all 3 of them for the entire night. Rockstar Chica can also never enter our office. Remember that if she spawns on the same side as the wet floor sign, she'll instantly be despawned, and she can't attack us unless we're not selected on her camera. So if she decides to go left, she immediately gets deleted, and if she decides to go right, she'll get stalled for the entire night. While you're in the cameras, close the right vent in case BB or JJ spawns, preventing them from entering the office. Now, drop the cameras and open the right vent. Congratulations, that was literally all that you had to do for the setup in this night. Now we're just going to be office stalling for the rest of the night. Though there are a few animatronics that you'll still have to deal with during the office stalling portion of the night. If you see Nightmare BB stand up, make sure to flash him. If you hear Ballora or Afton, close their respective doors, and make sure to get rid of any distractions like Phone Guy, OMC, or L Chip. Overall though, most of this night is going to be AFKing in the office and occasionally flashing Phantom Freddy away. Once the screen starts to fade out from ventilation, close the left door for about 1 second to get rid of Freddy. You'll have to do this before every single cam flip, so make it a habit. Now, align the cursor with the side vent, close the top vent, pull up the cameras, reset the ventilation, and get out of the cameras as fast as possible. Once you drop the cameras, make sure to open the top vent back up to not waste any power. Then close the side vent to get rid of BB or JJ. Now, simply repeat this cycle until 340 on the timer. It takes 50 seconds for the ventilation to fully go out, and the night will end at 4:30, meaning you'll never have to pull up the cameras once you've reset after 3:40. Once you've successfully flipped for the last time, enjoy your free 8,000 points, and the FNAF 4 office. Now we can add some more difficult animatronics. From this point on, adding any of these 10 animatronics is going to alter the gameplay pretty drastically, but we can add 4 of them in a group, as they're all taken care of in the exact same way. Puppet, Lefty, Music Man, and Chica will all be dealt with through the GMB cycle. This will make the office stalling sections a bit more complicated, but overall, the gameplay won't change that much. At this point, I would also add Night Marionette. It's better to get used to him a bit earlier when you don't have to deal with coin farming. When loading into the night, the initial setup is the exact same. Place the lure on the left side of the ducts, select camera 2, then drop the cameras. However, the office stalling portion is a bit more complicated. We can't just sit with the power gen and fan on all night anymore. The power generator makes too much noise for Music Man and Lefty, and Puppet and Chica will quickly become angry without any music. Luckily, all of these animatronics intervals and timers line up perfectly for a simple strategy known as the GMB cycle. We know from earlier that Chica can only progress through her stages on 15-second intervals, but there is no way that we're ever going to go off of Cam 2 and change the music manually. However, remember that Chica cannot progress if the GMB is on over these 15-second intervals. So in order to deal with Chica, we're going to have the GMB on over every single 15-second interval throughout the night. Though, if we were to keep the GMB on the entire night, we'd burn up and lose a ton of power pretty quickly. So how can we keep Chica happy without destroying our power? Well, we're going to hit 2 Chica intervals per GMB cycle, then recover with the power gen and fan. When the night first starts, buffer the power gen like always. Once you reach 14 seconds, switch from the power gen to the GMB, then turn off the fan. You never want to have the fan and the GMB on at the same time, as it'll eat a ton of your power. Now, we're going to keep the GMB on until 31 seconds, crossing over Chica's 30-second interval. Then we can switch back to the power gen and fan until 44 seconds. Changing back to the GMB at 44 seconds will hit Chica's 45-second interval. Then we can leave the GMB on all the way until the 101 second mark, where we switch back to the power gen and fan and restart the cycle. Basically, we're going to hit 2 Chica intervals per GMB cycle. But what about everyone else? Well, as we discussed earlier, the Puppet's box lasts 16.67 seconds. When the Puppet is on 20 AI, the music box progress will always count down at a rate of 6 per second, but the GMB will always wind the box at a rate of 5 per second. Because we have the GMB on for 16-second increments, as long as we can keep up with the GMB cycle, the Puppet will never have a chance to leave the music box, and the natural music box drain and GMB will perfectly counteract each other. Luckily, we don't have to pay any attention to Lefty and Music Man, the other 2 animatronics that were added for the GMB cycle. Despite the global music box being a literal music box, it somehow doesn't make any noise. So having the GMB on will completely erase any of the progress that Music Man had made from the noise that the power gen and fan generate. Lefty gets calmed down by the GMB and the temperature being cool, so it's kind of a win regardless with him. You'll also notice that I'm now keeping my cursor in the left middle portion of the screen for a majority of the time that I'm playing, and that's because of Night Marionette. If you use this image for a reference, right here is the safe zone for all of his spawns, but we can still reach Phantom Freddy with the flashlight. Now just stick to the GMB cycle and 4520 should go down no problem. Now the last 5 characters on our roster are where the exponential difficulty effect really starts to show. We have Orville, Nedbear, Foxy, Toy Freddy, and Funtime Foxy left. We'll save Funtime Foxy for last, leaving Orville, Nedbear, Foxy, and Toy Freddy. Orville, Nedbear, and Toy Freddy are going to be the animatronics that truly test your ventilation reset skills. Unless you want to make the beginning of the night way more complicated, there's really no way to prevent a Toy Freddy game over past the first 30 seconds or so. So for almost the entire night, Toy Freddy is going to be in his kill stage and will have that 1 in 10 chance to jump scare you on every half-second interval. So resetting the ventilation as fast as possible is essential so you can hopefully avoid as many of these intervals as possible. If you're really good at cam flips, you can avoid Toy Freddy's intervals entirely by flipping on 0.3 seconds. But this is a bit above the current skill we're aiming for right now, and just for a basic 49-20 win isn't really needed. For Orville and Nedbear, you again have 2 options. Remember that you have to be on the cameras for a collective 0.5 seconds before a duct animatronic can jump scare you. So if you're fast enough with your vent resets, you'll never even be in the cameras for a collective half second, and you won't have to worry about using the heater. Personally, when I was completing 50-20 for the first time, I preferred this method, as the heater was just too much to manage alongside everything else that we have to worry about. But if you do want the extra consistency, turning on the heater for about a second or 2 is very likely to repel Orville and Nedbear. Remember, their check to get pushed back runs every single frame. If you do use the heater, make sure to use it during a power gen and fan cycle. Turning on the heater will turn the fan off. So press space again to turn it back on so the office doesn't get too hot. Then quickly switch back to the power gen. Regardless of what method you're going to use to deal with Orville and Nedbear, fast flips will always help. However, we're going to have to learn a completely new tech to deal with our second to last animatronic, and that is Foxy. Along with Toy Freddy, Foxy is known for being one of the most RNG based animatronics in this game.
Why are his leg, bro?
That is crazy.
Please
You
deposit
must have just stayed on when you were.
for depositing
I guess. I was like 10 seconds. I don't know. Man, I'm gonna survive like 4 flips with it. Don't worry.
Especially if you ever take this game past the normal 20 AI limits.
First framed, really?
Foxy's whole mechanic through pretty much every FNAF game has always been to look at him in Pirate's Cove to stop him. But remember, we can't do that because we're too busy cam stalling everyone else. But because of the way that Foxy and Bonnie are programmed, we do have a way to deal with him without ever needing to check Pirate's Cove the entire night. Remember, earlier in the AI section, I mentioned how Bonnie and Foxy switching in Pirate's Cove is triggered by the animation of the cameras being pulled down, not being on the cameras. We can use this to our advantage to implement a technique called zero-frame flipping. Zero-frame flipping can be done in many different FNAF games, but it's the most useful here. The timing is a bit tricky to learn at first, but once you get it down, it's very consistent and lenient. You first want to press the S key. Then, right as you press S, begin flicking your mouse down to the camera button. You don't want your mouse to hit the camera button as you press S, it should be a few frames afterwards. This will cause the cameras to be pulled up and back down without ever actually entering the camera system, continuing the office stall. Whenever Foxy is on the desk, you're going to want to zero-frame flip every 2 seconds until the figurine switches back to Bonnie. If you aren't confident in your zero-frame flipping abilities, you can wait 6 seconds until you zero-frame flip instead. The figurine switching is a 1 in 3 chance every 2 seconds, so by 6 seconds, it's pretty likely to have switched. If you really don't like to zero-frame flip, you can close the front vent to flip after making sure Freddy is gone. But honestly, in my opinion, zero-frame flipping is much easier. For the actual night itself, the start is the exact same as before. Don't bother blocking off Toy Freddy since he's gonna game over before the first cam flip anyway. Also, note that once you've done the last flip, you won't need to do any more zero-frame flips, as you won't be flipping for the rest of the night. If you can manage Foxy with zero-frame flips while maintaining the GMB cycle, then 4920 should be done no problem. Before we move on to 5020 and the biggest jump in difficulty, I recommend rebeating 4920 a few times. You want to get really consistent with the office stalling portion of the night, as all of the difficulty that 5020 adds compared to 4920 is right at the beginning. Also, if you're still a bit confused about any strategies or how to play 49, 45, and 4020, I'll leave a video linked below on my second channel where I commentate exactly what I'm doing over the raw footage for all 3 completions. Once you're ready, it is time to take on the max mode of max modes, 5020 mode. Now, if you've watched 5020 completions before, you've probably been pretty confused on how one animatronic can make the start of the night go from this to this. Well, it's all because of 2 additional threats that we have to deal with in the beginning of the night. These threats being death coining Funtime Foxy, and dealing with Zor plus his secret characters. Now, if you're totally new to 5020, don't worry, I purposely chose the sweatiest possible recording to show you the difference. But in reality, you still don't have to move very fast. Basically, we have 2 objectives in the beginning of 5020. The first one is to get 10 Faz coins to buy the death coin and get rid of Funtime Foxy. Even though Funtime Foxy is now in the game, we're still going to abuse the cam stalling strategy for the plushie animatronics. So we need to get rid of him so that we can select camera 2 and not ever be forced to leave it by Funtime Foxy. We're going to want to have 10 Faz coins in 20 seconds in order to buy the death coin. But normally mousing around to farm coins in the cameras will likely result in a death one way or another. Instead, we're going to use a technique known as coin farming. Every time that an animatronic hits a door or a vent snare and makes a sound, you'll be awarded with 1 Faz coin. Most of the animatronics that bonk on doors spawn on certain intervals, making it pretty hard to farm them. Except for BB and JJ. BB and JJ roll their chance to spawn on every single camera flip, So make it muscle memory to close the side vent and reopen it as you pull up the cameras.
Since both Balloon Boy and JJ have an AI in 30 chance to spawn,
There's a pretty good chance you'll get a coin on most flips. Along with BB and JJ, Helpy will also award a coin every time that you click him to get rid of him, with Helpy having an AI in 40 chance to spawn. We can use BB, JJ, and Helpy to repeatedly farm coins without having to risk spawning anyone by being in the cameras for extended periods of time. Before going straight into 50-20 mode, you're going to want to practice to get moderately good at coin farming. First, load into a night with only Helpy, BB, and JJ, and just practice the normal loop of coin farming, clicking Helpy whenever he's there and blocking off the balloon kids with the vent. Also, remember that you can't just spam S to pull up the cameras as fast as possible. Sometimes when doing this, you'll 0-frame flip, which in this case we don't want, as remember this only affects Foxy and Bonnie and won't spawn Helpy, BB, or JJ. This should get you reasonably good at coin farming, but it won't be that easy in normal gameplay. Now add in Nightmarionette, Golden Freddy, and Nightmare BB. These three characters are going to be the reason for a majority of your deaths when coin farming. To deal with Golden Freddy, just put on the mask every time you drop the cameras. This should already be Reflexive Instinct by now, but if it's not, make sure to make it a habit. There are ways to farm without using the mask that are much faster, but they aren't needed for an initial 50-20 win, and we'll focus on those in the no death coin section. Nightmarionette can be particularly annoying, as two of his spawns intersect with Helpy's hitbox. You're going to have to get better at flicking your mouse to click Helpy, or just farm the balloon kids on the right side of the room and wait for him to despawn and pick a new location. Out of these three animatronics though, the one that I find the most problematic is Nightmare BB. You'll have to react quickly to see if he's standing up or not, then flick your mouse to the right and flash him before you pull the cameras back up. Once you can consistently get 10 Faz coins before 20 seconds with this roster, you'll be ready for the first part of the initial 50-20 setup. I'm gonna give two 50-20 strategies here. The first one is for a first time win. This strategy will require as little mechanical skill as possible, with a bit of good luck needed to pull off the win. The second strategy, and the one that I'd recommend after beating 50-20 for the first time, will feature better but more mechanically challenging strategies that will see you getting much more consistent wins. To perform the first strategy, use the same setup that we've been using for 49-20 and before, except instead of clicking on camera 2, click on cam 7, or the prize corner. You want to be on this camera so you can buy the death coin once you have enough Faz coins. Now begin to farm Faz coins like you've practiced. Remember to change over to the GMB once you hit the 14-second interval. If you need to stop coin farming to focus on the GMB, that's fine. Catching Chica's MO and winding for the puppet is much more important. Also, note that it's completely safe to tank the first Phantom Freddy jump scare, as no one will be close enough in the vents to jump scare you. Once you reach the 11-second mark, see if Zor spawned. Also, I know Zor isn't how you pronounce it, it's like XOR or whatever, but Zor sounds cooler. Bear with me here, it's a way easier way to say it. Remember, earlier in the AI section, we discussed how the timing between the sequence of secret characters is always tied to directly when Zor spawns. 5 of the 6 secret characters don't really matter and you shouldn't pay much attention to. The one that does matter is Plushtrap. Plushtrap requires you to be in his camera for 1.6 seconds before he leaves, meaning the later into the night that Plushtrap spawns, the higher chance that you'll die from more threats being ready to attack you. For an initial 50-20 win, I'm only going to cover Zor spawns of 11 seconds and 21 seconds, the two earliest possible spawns. I'll go more into other spawns in the consistency section, but for a first win, you'll want to reset for an early spawn. The chance of getting a Zor later than 21 seconds is only a 1 in 4, and because of how early this is in the run, shouldn't really be a problem. If Zor spawned at 11 seconds, you're going to want to open the cameras and watch Plushtrap at 26 seconds. If you've been paying close attention, you may wonder why we're going on 26 seconds instead of 25 seconds, and that's because of Rockstar Bonnie. If he spawns, the run is pretty much over and you should probably reset. So we're going to always make sure to avoid these intervals. Once you've fully gotten rid of Plushtrap, reset the ventilation, select camera 2, then drop the cameras and now play as you would in 49-20. Just use the power AC to get rid of Nightmare Chica and virtually everything else is the same as a 49-20 run. So to review the first time strategy, open cams, place the duct blur, then select cam 7. Farm 10 Faz coins, buy the Death Coin and Death Coin Funtime Foxy before the 26-second interval. Once you've Death Coin Funtime Foxy, move the wet floor sign to the other side of the office, despawning Rockstar Chica in every case. Then pull up the cameras, watch Plushtrap, reset the ventilation, and select camera 2. Now you can simply office stall for the rest of the night as if it's a 49-20 run. The one thing that I will note that's different about this section is the mini arenas that will block your screen from Zor. You'll have to move a little bit to the right in order to see if the figurine is Foxy or Bonnie before or 0 frame flipping. Other than that, everything should be the same. Now, here's that same strategy but for a 21-second Zor. Here, everything is exactly the same, except for the fact that you'll now wait until 35 seconds to look at Plushtrap. Also, make sure that when looking at Plushtrap, you get out of the cameras as quickly as possible, as Rockstar Bonnie has an interval at 39 seconds. If you were able to complete 50-20 with the beginner strategy, great job, and if that's where you want to stop with UCN as a whole, I completely understand. But for those who want more, keep watching as we go over some more consistent strategies and some harder challenges. Now, if you beat 50-20 with the beginner strategy, you are probably pretty used to seeing this screen. In order to make the beginner strategy as easy as possible, I avoided talking about Toy Freddy the entire time. But why not block him off at the start? Wouldn't that prevent him from getting a game over? Well, remember, earlier in the AI section, we talked about how Mr. Hugs moves on 10-second intervals. This means that you can block Mr. Hugs at 9 seconds, and as long as you're not on Toy Freddy's camera or the cameras at all on 10 seconds, Mr. Hugs can move from the closed door and game over after 15 seconds. This means that more often than not, Toy Freddy will game over around 25 seconds, right before we have to watch Plushtrap. So, functionally, blocking off Toy Freddy at the beginning of the night is virtually the same as not blocking him off at all. Sure, it might prevent deaths when buying the death coin, but most of the time that you'll spend in the cameras will be when watching Plushtrap. So how do we make Toy Freddy more consistent? Well, we know that Toy Freddy works on 10-second intervals, and that Mr. Hugs will freeze when you're on Toy Freddy's cam over these intervals. So try and block Toy Freddy off right over the 10-second interval, making sure to get out of the cameras by the 13-second interval to avoid Rockstar Bonnie. Depending on how late of a Zor spawn you get, you can also continue to deal with Toy Freddy at the 20-second and 30-second interval, ensuring that you'll always have a risk-free Plushtrap no matter how late your Zor spawn is. We've now eliminated most of the RNG from Toy Freddy, but there's one more character that also thrives on bad luck, and that is Foxy. I'm sure at some point, whether it was progressing up to 50-20 or beating 50-20 for the first time, you got Foxied, where he just decides to not want to switch with Bonnie and progresses to the point of getting in the office during an office stall. In order to delay Foxy a bit more, you can start implementing Foxy checks. Remember that checking Foxy for any amount of time will reset his H variable or his progress variable back to 0, along with his progress for his current stage. The best times that I've found to do this are right after playing Toy Freddy's minigame and right after watching Plushtrap. The reason that I chose these specific times is because of Bonnie. We aren't actually going to pay too much attention to who's on the desk during these checks, but we know that Bonnie can only disable the cameras for about 11 seconds. We play Toy Freddy's game at 10 seconds, and we don't have to Deathcoin Funtime Foxy until 20 seconds, and even then, you don't even need the cameras to be visible to buy the Deathcoin. When we finish watching Plushtrap, we're about to begin the office stall, where we don't look at the cameras anyway, so who cares if Bonnie's there. But if Foxy happens to be there during either of these times, we get a free reset on his progress, making up for any future bad luck during the office stalling portion. Lastly, at the very beginning of the night, close the left vent snare in order to block off Mangle from the opening in case she decides to rush the closest path. Just a little bit more consistency overall. Now, here's how you can deal with some later Zor spawns. You can survive up to a 41-second Zor with the grace period the plushie animatronics give you. So here's how to deal with a 31 and 41 second spawn. For 31 and 41 second Zors, you're almost definitely going to need to learn how to use the heater, as there's a pretty good chance Orville and Nedbear will be ready to attack as you're watching Plushtrap, at which point it's very likely that they'll kill. In this game, I block off Toy Freddy at 10 seconds then coin farm as normal, even though Bonnie was in Pirate's Cove here. By just spam clicking the general area of where the death coin is, I was able to buy it and take care of Funtime Foxy. Now I notice that Foxy is on the desk, and seeing as we're right near the office stalling portion of the night, it would be a good idea to get a quick check-in. Now, during the power gen cycle, I use the heater and fan for 1 to 2 seconds, making it a very high probability that Orville and Nedbear were pushed back. Now I wait until 45, watch Plushtrap, and get one last Foxy check-in before beginning the office stall. 41 is pretty much the exact same, except we now watch Plushtrap at 55 instead of 45. You could, in theory, keep playing Toy Freddy's game all the way up until Plushtrap, but honestly, I think this is more risk than it's worth, especially considering the fact that later Zor spawns are less and less likely. When you feel consistent enough with 50-20, we can finally get to the last challenge and last section of this video, 50-20 no death coin. 50/20 no death coin is a huge leap in difficulty from normal 50/20. You see, in normal 50/20, you're going to have to do a bit of fast movement at the start, but once Funtime Foxy and Plush Trap are gone, the knight is pretty much just off as stalling. For no death coin, a lot more gameplay is required past the first 30 seconds, and for that reason, I consider it to be a much more fun, but also much more difficult challenge. We're no longer able to buy the death coin, so now we're forced to buy plushies in order to prevent the plushie animatronics from jump scaring us when watching Funtime Foxy. The strategy that I'm going to be going over for no death coin is a much more skill-based and reduced RNG strategy. There is a strategy that requires less coin farming, known as the NDC old strat, but that requires perfect showtime luck, meaning only 1 in 9 runs would even have a chance of being winnable. I'll also only be going over the strategies for the 11-second and 21-second Zor, as later Zor spawns in NDC get a lot more complicated than the normal Funtime Foxy death coin strategy. For our strategy, we're going to be watching every single showtime except for the 5 AM and 6 AM showtimes, regardless of whether or not one is actually happening. We do this because many different animatronics can block the showtime sign, so we aren't going to even bother looking at when the showtime is. We're just going to assume that every single hour has one. Because we now have to deal with plushie animatronics, the beginning portion of the night is a lot more challenging. You're going to want to have 17 to 20 Faz coins by the time you watch Plush Trap, as opposed to the 10 Faz coins that you need for the Funtime Foxy death coin route. You could keep playing the start the same as usual, but I have a much faster way to farm coins. You see, normally players would enter the cameras to place the audio lure, vent snare, and select Toy Freddy's cam, then drop cams and begin a coin farm. But you can actually combine the two. Doing this is what's known as maskless. By aiming your cursor right where you need to click in the camera monitor, then blocking off the balloon kids between flips, you can place the audio lure, vent snare, and select Toy Freddy's camera, all while generating Faz coins. Maskless is pretty difficult, especially with Nightmare BB and Golden Freddy, but it does look super cool and will have you farming those 20 Faz coins a lot more consistently. Think of it as the cranking 90s of FNAF. It's not totally needed, but it looks super cool and is just kind of the flex of the game. When you're farming coins after Toy Freddy, select Funtime Foxy's camera. If you have the chance, get some Foxy checks in, as he's a lot worse in NDC than Funtime Foxy death coin. Now, move the wet floor sign at least once, and watch Plush Trap at 26 per usual. Once you've finished watching Plush Trap, you have a few things you need to do before you're ready to watch the first showtime at 45 seconds. First, get rid of Nightmare Chica using the Power AC. Then, at some point during the power gen cycle, use the heater for 1 to 2 seconds. We're going to have to buy a plushie here, which means being in the cameras for an extended period of time, leaving us vulnerable to Orville and Nedbear, so using the heater is pretty much essential here. Also, make sure to switch the wet floor sign around every time before you go into the cameras, as we aren't going to be cam stalling Rockstar Chica at all. I should probably talk about the wet floor sign itself here, as this thing has caused me more deaths in NDC than almost every animatronic has. The reason for this is because of how double clicks are registered in clickteam, which is what FNAF games are built in. Basically, in order for a double click to count as a double click, it has to be on the exact same pixel as the first click. This can make the wet floor sign feel super inconsistent, and leaves you vulnerable to Nightmarionette. So try and stop moving your cursor when double clicking the wet floor sign, and you should hopefully be okay. Around the 40-second mark, close the left door to get rid of Freddy. He might not be here yet, but we need to account for all kinds of RNG. If you don't hear a bonk after a second of the door being closed, open it and remember that he hasn't left yet. Now, at 42 seconds, there's a chance that Ballora and Toy Chica will both appear. If Toy Chica spawns, resist your instinct to put on the mask. Instead, block Ballora off if she spawns, then pull up the cameras around 44.3 seconds to view Funtime Foxy's showtime while only hitting one Toy Freddy interval. Right after you view Funtime Foxy's showtime and reset the ventilation, switch to camera 2. You're going to want to be on camera 2 in order to make plushie buying faster. If you get a 21-second Zor, the beginning is mostly the same. You'll just have to play a lot faster. Once you reach the 31-second power gen cycle, use the heater before going to watch Plush Trap at 35. If you hear Molten Freddy in the vent, make sure to block him off as well. Once Plush Trap is gone, drop cams and close the left door for Freddy. Turn on the Power AC to repel the 42-second Nightmare Chica, and block Ballora if she spawns. Then turn on the GMB and watch the showtime and select camera 2. It's a lot to do in a really short 4-second window, but you'll ultimately end up in the exact same position as if you got an 11-second Zor. Now, before the first plushie buy and after the 1 AM showtime, you're going to have to wait in the office until the 52-second interval in order to avoid Rockstar Bonnie. If Freddy didn't show up during the initial setup for the 1 AM showtime, now's a good time to block him off. Now it's time to buy the first plushie. You have two ways of doing this. The first way is to simply open the cameras, click the vent and cam system to despawn the phantoms, see who it is in camera 2, then switch to the prize corner, buy the plushie, then switch back to Funtime Foxy's camera. If you haven't already beaten No Death Coin before, this is how I'd recommend you do this. The second way is to do all of that, but in the same way that we farmed coins, by quickly flipping up the cameras. You'll need to close the front vent every single time you pull up the cameras, but overall, you'll spend less time in the cameras and hit less 0.5 second intervals for Toy Freddy. Regardless of which strategy you do, memorizing exactly where the plushies are is crucial so you don't fumble around in the prize corner like I do here. This will give Toy Freddy way more chances to RNG you throughout the night. Once you buy the first plushie, the next reset will be at 1:30 for the 2 AM showtime, so make sure to get Foxy off your desk as soon as possible. At this point, you should hopefully have at least 5 coins. If you're worried about how many coins you have, you can close the front vent every time you see Springtrap or hear Ennard and Molten Freddy for some extra coins. If Rockstar Freddy ever demands coins, use the heater on him for 1 second during a power gen cycle to make him glitch out. Remember that you only need to have the heater on for a collective second in order to make him start running his check to tweak out. 10 seconds before the 2 AM change at 1:30, make sure to get rid of Freddy with the left door and move the wet floor sign to the other side of the office. Then pull up the cameras on 129.3 and reset the ventilation for the showtime. You'll probably realize that after attempting this challenge that Toy Freddy really sucks in no death coin runs.
No.
Oh.
And
Was that 10?
yep.
Double
10.
digits?
And that's because showtimes are always on 1 second intervals. So no matter what, even if you perfectly do the hard plushie strat, you're always going to have to hit 4 Toy Freddy intervals minimum. There's really no way to deal with this, and honestly, you're just going to have to pray that he doesn't decide to end your game when you're watching showtimes. Once you hit the 201 power gen cycle, we're going to do the exact same preparation we did at 31 seconds to buy the second plushie. Make sure to run the heater to get Orville and Ned back, close off Freddy and move the wet floor sign. Then, right as you switch to the GMB, pull up the cams for the 2:15 3 AM showtime. Then, right before dropping cams, select cam 2 like we did earlier. This time, wait until 2:25 to avoid Rockstar Bonnie's interval. Then, buy the second plushie as fast as you can. From this point on, we no longer need to hoard our Faz coins, so feel free to pay Rockstar Freddy in order to save power. Power is a lot more strict in no death coin than it is in the normal Funtime Foxy strategy, so save where you can. From here, you only have 2 flips left. The first one is right at 3 minutes for the 4 AM showtime. This is the last possible flip in which you can get some stupid Toy Freddy RNG and die. So as long as Foxy isn't on you at this point, you only have 1 flip left. Wait until right after 3:42, but before 3:45 to avoid both Rockstar Bonnie and Funtime Foxy. Remember that Funtime Foxy cannot jump scare you when you're on his camera until you pull up the cameras again. So if Funtime Foxy has a 5 or 6 AM showtime, we're going to cam stall him here until the end of the night. Once you get the last vent reset and you have enough power to live, congratulations, you've beaten what some might call the true 50/20 experience in 50/20 no death coin. I'll also be posting live commentary versions of these if you need on the second channel, so those will be in the description as well. Now, there are other death coin routes that are technically harder than no death coin. You can death coin a total of 6 characters, and who you death coin can change the gameplay a lot. Death coining Toy Freddy is the exact same as a normal no death coin run, except now you don't have to worry about his stupid showtime RNG, but you do have to be on point with coin farming in order to buy both the death coin and have enough coins for plushies. You can also death coin Rockstar Bonnie, Lefty, Foxy and Bonnie, and the Puppet. Rockstar Bonnie and Lefty are more of challenge runs than anything, to be honest. Foxy and Bonnie is just NDC with slightly less RNG, and Puppet Death Coin is used for super high green runs. Some of these Death Coin routes are super cool, but to be honest, they're kinda out of the scope of this video. If you've done everything up to this point in the guide portion of this video, you're probably pretty cracked. So before we end this monster of a video, let me give you some quick tips for green running, which is beating a night with more power left over. When you're closing doors for Ballora and Freddy during power gen cycles, turn off the fan so you stay at only 1 bar of usage. Always get jump scared by Phantom Freddy and close the front vent on reaction so you don't need to use the flashlight as much. And lastly, line up your vent resets so that they always fall on power gen cycles instead of GMB cycles. There's some more stuff you can do with letting Puppet out at the end of the night and winding manually at the beginning of the night, but honestly, that's a little too advanced for this video. Now, I do have a treat for the end of this video that I planned all the way back a few months ago. In order to commemorate the end of the series that really kickstarted this channel as a whole, I gathered artists that were all part of my community to make a giant multi-animator project, or MAP, of 50/20 no death coin, featuring all of your favorite animatronics, and of course, the one pulling the strings behind it all, Cassidy. Huge thank you to all of the artists that helped with this project. Their names will be displayed at the bottom right corner of their scenes. I also want to give thanks to Norkuna for the sound design, And a huge thank you to brennenspeal, one of my closest friends, who designed the entire storyboard for this animation for the community to go off of. Without him, this wouldn't be possible. And if you'd like to see more of his work in particular, especially his upcoming comic, check out his Instagram, YouTube, and ArtStation, all of which will be linked in the description. Now, please enjoy the 5020 No Death Coin MAP.
To take your final bow.
Can I just say, like, damn, I genuinely cannot express how thankful I am to have a community like this, because look at what y'all did. I asked for line art, a low frame rate, and no backgrounds, and y'all came in with smooth animations, colors, shading, backgrounds, made it all float together and sync with the music. Bro, bro. Also, look at like how many unique styles we got. We got 2D, we got 3D. Dude, we even got an animation on paper, and the paper physically crinkled to represent the music box being broken. Genuinely, I cannot express how overjoyed I am at the end result of this project. Not only with this video as a whole, but how crazy good this animation was. Because of how good this first animation turned out, I want to announce something. A lot of people within the FNAF community think that 5020 is the hardest challenge that FNAF as a whole has to offer. Or, if you're a bit more in the scene, maybe 5020 No Death Coin. But when you jump into the realm of fan games and mods, it gets so much deeper. I've already done some challenges with fan games on this channel, but I'm aiming for the top. Along with completing the hardest challenge in the main games, which is another planned video, I'd like to continue these animations in a 4 to 6 part series, showcasing the challenges and enemies in these FNAF games that caused me the most pain in a totally new way. For future episodes, I plan to make more of a blend with gameplay and animation, and I think it has potential to turn out great. If, like me, you thought the animation was absolutely amazing, make sure to comment down below so I know to keep going with this. And in case you're wondering, for the last episode of the series, I plan for it to end on Hopeless Pursuit. So if you like Cassidy, don't worry, she'll be back. If you want to help out with any of these future animations, I'll likely be gathering a consistent team of animators that I can actually pay to produce these. When I started this project, I was only at 20k subs, but now the channel is big enough that I might actually be able to sustain something like this. That being said, I am a college student, and these take a really long time to make. This one took about 2 months just for reference, so don't expect these to be coming out at a regular rate. Also, regular uploads will still be around. I'm planning on starting a new series called 3 Scary Challenges, so there will still be normal style challenge videos in between the super crazy max modes and animations. So don't worry, the content you've been seeing is not going anywhere. If you're interested at all in helping with the future of the animations, please join the Discord server at discord.gg/mutarmy with the link in the pinned comment or in the description. Then head over to the Get Artist Role channel and react to this message in order to get the role. This is the role that I'm going to ping for any future updates for these animation projects, so make sure to grab it. If you've made it this far in the video, you are a true champion. As you can probably tell by the release date of this video took a really long time to make. I've recently started my sophomore year of college, and videos are probably going to take a lot longer to release now. But I promise I am not going anywhere, and the quality of videos isn't going anywhere either. I just won't be able to upload as frequently because of how much time I lose from schoolwork. But trust me, I have some of the best videos yet planned for the channel. With that said, thank you all so much for watching this video, thank you to all of the animators that helped out with the MAP, and thank you for supporting me this far. Peace.